The modern web is pretty different from what we knew growing up, and it's useful if we take a look back to understand where we're at now. In this lecture, we'll take a look at how things have changed over the years and how Angular fits in. Alright, so we know that AngularJS helps us to build single-page web applications, but what exactly is a single-page app? Well, to think about this, let's take a step back in time and talk about the early days of the web. So if you were around back in the 90s, you probably remember websites that looked a little bit like this one. This would be your typical GeoCities website that would have some text and some images and terrible backgrounds. And that was about it. There wasn't a whole lot that these websites did except show content to the user. And anytime that you wanted to get new content, say on another page of the website, you would need to do what's called a round-trip request to the server. Your browser would send a request to the server would put together all the HTML required for that new page, and that HTML would be sent back to your browser. Now really, this is how most websites still work. Most websites still make these round-trip requests to servers to get their data and their assets, but as we know, things have changed a lot. These days, with a lot of applications, we don't actually have to refresh the page to get new content. And a good example of this is Gmail. If you use Gmail, you know that your inbox will be updated without you having to do anything. When you get a new email, it'll just show up there. And further, when you use the application, anytime you go to a new spot within it, you're not actually refreshing the page. So if you see there, I just went to my starred section and the route within the URL bar changed, but the page actually wasn't being refreshed, as if I was to refresh it manually like this. And so this is quite different from how websites and web applications used to work. And the reason that we're able to have single-page apps like this today is because of advances in JavaScript over the years. And one particular advance was the adoption of XHR, or XML HTTP requests. And so XHR basically is a way for your browser to make a request to a server and get something back in a response without the need to refresh the page. And so that's basically the crux of single-page web applications. They are able to download all the assets and all the HTML for a single page, and then anytime you want to get new data or new content that lives on a server, you send an XHR request to that server and get a response back. And we can actually see this at work in Gmail if we take a look at the network tab within our developer tools. So I just right-clicked, did inspect elements, and then if we go to network, and I'll filter by XHR, if we send a message, and I'll just send one to myself, what you see is that we get an XHR request sent when I press the send button. We can take a look at this, and what you'll see is that a post request was made to the Google Mail server. And so this post request basically took my data, sent it over the wire to Google's servers, and then told me that everything went through okay. And as you can see, there are many more XHR requests that have happened automatically, and that's just Gmail automatically doing stuff to keep things in sync. One of those items in here would be this message that I just sent to myself that just arrived in my inbox automatically. And so the point of all this is that everything here happened without me needing to do any kind of refreshing. When I sent the message, instead of the page kind of refreshing and telling me that everything went through, it just went through and told me the message was sent. And likewise, when the message arrived in my inbox, the page wasn't refreshed, it just showed up. So what does this give us really? Well, a single page app gives us a much more desktop application type feel in a browser. And that's really important for usability. Users obviously like to have a better experience when they're using an application. And single-page apps generally give the user a feel of responsiveness in the application that is more like a native desktop application than a traditional round-trip web app. So just to recap, a single-page web application is one where you visit the application site in your browser, and when the app loads, everything that it needs, like its content, its images, for the most part, is loaded right away. And then whenever the content needs to change, like if you need to send data to a server or get new data from a server, that happens in the background through XHR requests. And XHR again is XML HTTP request. And Gmail makes it look pretty easy, but there's actually a lot going on when it comes to single-page web applications. We have to think about the communication with the server via XHR requests. We have to think about routing. So if I go to my starred folder here, you can see that this route changed in the URL bar. We have to think about how that takes place. And there's many more pieces to building a single-page web application, which we'll talk about and how Angular helps in the next video.